Well, this is by far the most random video topic I've ever made. You ever heard of the Paddington movies? Yeah, me neither, but apparently they're a thing. So I was scrolling through Twitter one day, and saw a tweet which talked about how Citizen Kane had been dethroned as the top rated film on Rotten Tomatoes, as a negative review of it had popped up from over 80 years ago, and been added to the list. And in turn, the new #1 spot went to... Paddington 2. Best movie ever made. I mean, this basically confirms it. I had completely forgotten these movies were a thing. I remember seeing the trailer for the original whenever I was a kid and thinking it was lame. I thought it was going to be the same old shtick as the Smurfs or Alvin and the Chipmunks, just with a polite British bear, and avoided seeing it. Then I saw the trailer for the sequel and thought, what the hell, the first one did well enough for them to make more of these? But seeing this all transpire online, even to the point where the official Paddington Twitter account was talking about it, it made me wonder, is this movie really that good, or is it just a joke? Like, are people saying, let's take this bad kids movie and say it's better than one of the greatest films ever made? Or do people genuinely think that Paddington 2 is a fantastic work of art? And that's why I decided to watch it for this video. So let's dive right into Paddington 2 to find out if it is indeed the greatest film ever made. Now, for all my American viewers out there watching this video and wondering, what the are we a minute into the video yet? Okay, cool. Subscribe, by the way. What the fuck is a Paddington? Well, allow me, a resident of the UK technically, to inform you. Paddington Bear is a popular children's character from Britain, who first appeared all the way back in 1958. Paddington was a charismatic and polite bear, who was taken in by a human family, after his parents died in an earthquake, and his aunt moved into a retirement home. His main character trait is that he likes marmalade. So we have a nice, polite, friendly bear, who has an affection for a gooey, yellowish substance. Yes, this was created after Winnie the Pooh, why do you ask? The books were very successful, and so spawned an influx of merchandise and TV series. Up until the year of 2014, where it was turned into a live-action CGI hybrid movie that was apparently well received and profitable enough to be given a sequel 3 years later in 2017. And that's where we begin today. I went into this film completely blind, and how was it? Was it the most spectacular, amazingest motion picture ever conceived by man? Yeah, it was very good. Surprisingly. Nothing mind-blowing, but for what it was, a live-action CGI kids talking animal movie, they went out of their way to make this way better than it should have been. Paddington 2 starts us with re-establishing the status quo from the original film. This is done through a letter he's writing to his aunt at the quote-unquote retirement home. I don't know how to break it to you, Paddington, but I think Aunt Lucy may have, you know. The plot for this movie is great. It starts off so simple. All Paddington wants to do is buy a pop-up book of London to give to his aunt for her birthday, and so picks up a variety of odd jobs to try and pay for it. But one night he witnesses somebody stealing it from the store, and after eventually losing the culprit, the police arrest Paddington, with him being framed for the robbery. Just like Sonic Adventure 2. The true cinematic parallels. It's weird, this is the exact opposite direction you would expect the film to take, but as a result of that, it keeps you all the more entertained. Paddington is then thrown in prison, and now has to deal with the fact that all his inmates despise him, as his family try to clear his name. Yeah, so Paddington 2 is a prison escape movie. After escaping with some inmates, this all builds up to a large-scale action climax of Paddington hopping between moving trains trying to retrieve the book and prove himself innocent. It's just the right level of whimsy that feels perfectly in line with a children's storybook series. The film generally keeps a lighthearted tone throughout, but that makes it all the better, because it's contrasted against this harsh setting that all the characters are put in. I wasn't expecting to enjoy the prison stuff as much as I did, it was my favorite part of the whole film. And it's because you're taking this polite young animated bear, and putting him in with a bunch of prisoners who want to tear him to fucking shreds. Now that I mention it, what further elevates everything are the characters. Paddington is just completely unhateable. Ben Whishaw does an excellent job at making him sound so sweet and caring. I'm glad they didn't decide to give him the voice of a child because that would have been so obnoxious and annoying. But here his complete naivety and oblivious to the world around him becomes way more endearing. If I were to have a minor complaint, it's that I feel like the animation on him isn't the best. There's just something about him that feels so, I don't know, lifeless. He barely emotes through his face, and at times that can be a bit jarring against the voice delivery. There weren't many points, however, where I felt like that was a huge issue. Again, the movie doesn't have a very animated tone, so I guess making his expressions more cartoony would have taken away from that. The overall worst aspect of the movie, in my opinion, would have to be his family. Not the mum and dad, I actually enjoyed them quite a bit. I enjoyed how nice and willing to go the extra mile they were for Paddington, and while a tad rushed, I did enjoy the dad's arc of wanting to feel young again. What was more than a tad rushed though, was the pointless arc they give for the boy character. I don't mind that these kids do basically nothing in the film. It's better, if anything, it means no awful lame kids actors. It only bothers me because they set up a plot for him and did fucking nothing with it. During the introduction of the film, Paddington is like, "Oh, he is my brother. He really likes model trains, but he hates them now and wants everyone to refer to him as J-Dog." You'd think this is him setting up for some scene at his school or something, where he's trying to impress some cool kids and doesn't want to be seen involving himself with lame stuff like model trains. But because, again, the movie takes place in prison, they never do anything with this until the very climax of the film, where they need help with the runaway train and he proudly claims, "My name is Peter and I like model trains." I don't actually think his name was Peter, he just had such little presence that I forgot what it was. Point being, don't put it in at all if you aren't going to do anything with it. My favorite characters by far were the inmates. I loved seeing them get fed up with Paddington's antics, and the chef character was a wonderful contrast to Paddington's optimism, with him being very confrontational and easy to anger. I loved the little moment where Paddington gets pissed off at him and stares him down. It was a great moment of edge to add to his character. The villain was also very good. This feeling, egotistical actor who's disguising himself as different people so he can get all the notes needed to steal a bunch of gold. I love how much they play into how self-absorbed he is, with him talking to himself through the different disguises he has laying around his attic. Something else that I really started to appreciate during my time watching was how they went out of their way to make this world feel truly lived in. During the opening, they do a wonderful job at setting up all the different residents on this street. We see Paddington say good morning to all these people who he helps during the day. It does a very good job in showing that there's stuff going on outside of the main plot. The filmmakers didn't need to include this stuff, but did it anyway, and it's greatly appreciated. Such as the bitter shut-in having a crush on the newsstand lady, and eventually coming out to talk to her. I love that part. It's honestly just nice to have a piece of modern media where a group of characters are just pleasant to one another, I suppose. Don't get me wrong, I like my fair share of shows whose cast consists of nothing but cynical assholes. I mean, I see one every time I look in the mirror. But sometimes it's just nice to see the exact opposite, and to have a film where most of the characters are simply just nice to one another. Again, it's very idealized and whimsical, it works great. What enhances that tenfold is the directing. It is fucking top-notch stuff. The film's director was Paul King, who previously worked on... not all that much. Whoa, he's directing the new Willy Wonka movie, that'll be interesting to see. But there is no way this guy wasn't inspired by Wes Anderson in some way, shape, or form. Because I was immediately getting Fantastic Mr. Fox vibes from this, especially with the close-up angles of the character in the center. There's so much variety in the shots, I could honestly just sit here and name my favorites. That's what I'm gonna do. I adore this pop-up style I have while Paddington describes London for his aunt. The visual of all the prisoners having their clothes mixed with their red sock and being stuck wearing pink outfits is not only a funny image, but a fun way to escalate the tension between them with Paddington. There's this part that's rotoscoped out of nowhere, as they're retelling the events of the robbery. That segment was dope as fuck. And then it gets to the point where I'm just naming scenes. Like the whole prison escape was so fucking cool to watch. That part felt ripped right out of Mr. Fox. I loved it. There's the scene where Paddington is talking to the inmates through the pipes, with him becoming saddened by the idea that his family are going to forget about him in there. That was heartbreaking. And I love the visual of the four of them escaping on a hot air balloon. That had such a whimsical storybook vibe to it. I'm going to stop there out of fear of spoiling more of the film because you really should give it a watch for yourself. But the film ends on a very sweet note, with Paddington waking up on his aunt's birthday to see that she's been taken over to London to see— Wait, his aunt is actually alive? I thought the retirement home for elderly bears was an allegory for heaven, what the fuck? Well, I mean, good for him, I guess. Paddington 2 is a wonderful film. Is it my favorite movie ever? Nah, not really. Probably not even in the top 10. It's not amazing, and I think that if you go into it expecting the best movie ever, you're gonna come out disappointed. But if you're like me, and are just wondering what all the hubbub was about, I think you'll come out of the experience extremely satisfied, as Paddington 2 is an excellent kids movie that has no right being as good as it is. And I for one am very excited to see the third movie coming out in theaters. But that just leaves us with one last question. Just why does this film have such a high score on Rotten Tomatoes? Well, actually, I can answer that fairly quickly. This movie is impossible to hate. Rotten Tomatoes works like this as far as I know. Things get rated either negatively or positively, splatty tomato or fresh tomato. So if someone rates a movie, let's say a 6 out of 10, and another person rates the same movie a 10 out of 10, despite obviously being two very different reviews of the movie, both are technically seen as a positive, and therefore are both treated equally as a positive review. I think, this is again just how I heard the site works, it's not very intuitive. And that works brilliantly in favor of a film like Paddington 2, because this movie is so unbelievably charming that I can imagine the one person to give it a negative review either has no soul, or is the creator of Winnie the Pooh still jealous about being ripped off. So if a critic comes out of Paddington 2, not as impressed as someone like me, but still thinks, yeah, that was charming, it was enjoyable, it still goes towards that 100% rating. I hope that makes sense. The point I'm trying to make here is go watch Paddington 2, it's a very good movie, and I think you'll at the very least have a positive experience with it. Anyways, that's it, video over, go home. I await this video being ignored when dumb people claim that I only make negative videos. See ya then!